I'd like to speak to you about our souls. Now, in the Catholic Church, when they speak about our souls, they are generally speaking about themselves. Now, also, if you look at the Methodists, for instance, or the Baptists, when they say our souls, they are generally talking about themselves. Here, however, in the Church of England, when we say our souls, we like to speak about Christianity in general, about all of the religious denominations throughout this lovely globe. Now, a few years ago, just a couple of years back, in the Church of England, we decided to make Charles Darwin, well, apologise to him generally. It was a bit late, he was dead, but he was a member of the Church of England and even studied to be a member of the clergy. However, he went on and did these disgraceful things at the time, which was studying naturalist things and finding out about, as you probably know, evolution by natural selection. Now, in the Church of England, it was a shock. We had no idea. What's this to do with our souls? Well, I'll get to that in a moment. But Charles Darwin, he was a great man, in fact, and all these years later, 200 years passed, until we apologised to the man because he was absolutely right. Now, well, people come up to me very often and say to me, how can I save my soul? What must I do? Must I stick to this? It says this in the Bible, it says that in the Bible. Well, obviously, there are contradictions within the Bible, and in the Church of England, we don't actually mind that. If you listen to our very own Archbishop of Canterbury, he actually does admit that sometimes the Bible can be just what is known as poetic. Now, man obviously wrote the Bible under the guidance of God. But could it not also be the case that, say, a film writer who writes a film could also be writing that film under the influence of God? I'm not sure in the case of Debbie Does Dallas, but it must also be taken into account that it can happen. So we must look at the Bible poetically. And if we are to save our souls, then we need to interpret it correctly. Okay, I'll get to this next part. So the thing is, what are we to make of stories like Adam and Eve? And do they condemn us to hell if we do not believe them? Well, I don't think so. As I say, they're lovely poetic stories, and generally I think people like to hear them. It seems in this story that God, for instance, rather enjoyed watching naked people, something which many may do today. But does it say a moral story to us in the sense of, should we wear clothes or should we go around naked? Well, in the case of Mrs. D.G., I insist, in fact, that she does go around fully clothed, even at home. However, the thing is, in the rest of the Bible, if you look later on, people are covering up all the time. So what are we to read from this? Should people be naked or should they be covered up? Well, I don't think this is really an issue that God is really that bothered about, to be honest. God does not teach us these sort of things. It is a moral issue that goes around in society. So, why should, for instance, if there was a man in the street now, or even in this church, running around naked, I think it would be quite shocking, but not necessarily something he would go to hell for, or she, hopefully. But should she go to hell? Well, no, not according to God. It's not an issue. And there are many things in the Bible like this. We must stick to what Jesus teaches us. And in fact, Jesus himself, in the Catholic faith, for instance, we see that Jesus is seen as not just the Son of God, but God as well. The Spirit, the Holy Spirit, and everything else. Well, in the Church of England, we see him more as a sort of demigod, half God, half human. Son of God, in fact. And if you don't believe that, if you believe he was full God, that came down to heaven and not half God, then so what? the Bible doesn't quite make it clear, does it? But is it worth splitting up the world's religions for? Is it worth splitting up all of Christianity over? No, we don't think so in the Church of England. And so, when we talk about our souls, this is why we talk about all of the souls within the Christian faith. I'll finish this in a moment. Let's have some tea break. Mrs. Higgins, tea ready? Super. Back in a moment. Okay, so when are our souls actually in jeopardy? If we look at stories which also come from Genesis, poetic stories, like the Tower of Babel, for instance, you can look at this story and say, man built this tower, and this tower was too tall. God didn't like it, so he destroyed the tower. Thunderbolts into the side of it, went down like a pack of cards, and people below, they all spoke different languages, different religions even. They were spread upon the world and all had different opinions. This, of course, is just a fable, although it does seem very similar to something. Anyway, probably not a good example, come to think of it. Let's look something more like space travel, sending up rockets into space. If God, after building a tower, he could easily destroy a space rocket going up into space, couldn't he? Which is much taller than the tower. Yeah, it's happened. Okay, well, perhaps the Hubble telescope, for instance. We put a telescope up, wonderful, looks out into space, and as soon as they turned it on, it was, oh no, it's broken. Needed glasses, just like myself, actually. But perhaps these are bad examples. Apollo, it would mean that things like the Apollo program, you know, landing on the moon. I mean, that would be a fake, wouldn't it, if that was the case? And there would be all sorts of conspiracy theories going around. I think I'll start this again. Do you mind? No? Okay. Well, we'll do this again. Sorry. So the point is that there are things in the Bible that not obeying one or getting one wrong is not going to mean our souls are in jeopardy. Our souls will continue, and our souls will be fine, just as long as we don't understand anything we're doing. And that's the problem. People understand far too much nowadays. If they didn't understand anything like the old days, you go straight to heaven. In fact, heaven's probably full of old people. But today, nowadays, people understand too much. And of course that's going to mean you go to hell, I think. I'm not sure. In fact, why should I be sure? Why should people come and ask me? I just study the bloody Bible, for God's sake. Can we do this again later? I don't feel in the mood now.